Adaaaa. You're watching the number one podcast in the YouTube wrestling community, and I'm your host, Jean-Paul Laek, and this is Ropebreak Family. Here we are, another Monday in the books, and you know what that means, an awful edition of Monday Night Raw. And this show did not disappoint in the awful category because, we're leading to Backlash. We were kind of getting a little excited after WrestleMania. We thought, okay, legit, and now we just keep getting the same old stuff. We finally saw some, debuts for Monday Night Raw, but they were flops because it was, no offense, nobody really that great. And we're going to see some big returns of somebody who we were glad to see when they left the wrestling business. So again, not a very good, edition of Monday Night Raw. But, if you haven't already, go check out all the content from last week. We have soccer videos on the channel for all you soccer fans. Please go check that out, show that video some support. And also, SmackDown, Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan, that fantastic match. And of course, all the other weekly shows. So go check that out. But starting this week, Monday Night Raw, let's get into it. And the show opened up. We pretty much just see stuff that happened last week, and then, leading us here to this big championship match, everything going on. And then we see a clip from earlier in the day. We see Adam Pearce, Sonya Deville, MVP. They're backstage. Pearce is going to flip a coin to decide who will face Bobby Lashley tonight. But Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman, they walk in, they start bickering. Pearce tells them to save it for Backlash. And then Braun wins the coin toss. So he faces Lashley tonight. Really, a coin toss? Why do we need to see this in a singles match? You can't keep these guys away for 2-3 more weeks. Of course, WWE can. So then MVP tells Braun he shouldn't be excited because that the Almighty will put Braun in the Hurt Lock tonight and he won't make it to Backlash. So, okay. There's the opening segment, already started off on a bad foot. Then we go live to the Thunderdome, and out comes the Raw Tag Team Champions, AJ Styles and Omos. We finally see them back. AJ reminds everyone that they beat the New Day at WrestleMania, and he gives props to Omos for his incredible debut. AJ asks the WWE Universe if they were missed, and he says that they've been gone celebrating in the Caribbean. AJ says that he's officially a Grand Slam champion, and it only took him 5 years. He doesn't want to make the New Day any more jealous than they already are. So Kofi and Xavier, they come out to the stage. They remind AJ they are 11-time tag champs. They didn't take time off to celebrate. Kofi says there's a reason that they've won the belt so many times. Every time they get knocked down, they get back up, blah, blah, blah. Kofi says AJ can take shots if he wants, but the fact of the matter is that when he won the WWE Championship at WrestleMania in a grueling match with his family at ringside and his brothers in the ring with him, he came to Raw the next night because that's the kind of champion he is, even though he's the SmackDown champ. Because you remember Kofi was having title matches like with everybody. Him and Rollins, I think, were almost going to do title versus title or something like that, and then that match didn't actually happen. It got some interrupted or something happened, but he keeps saying all this stuff, and then Omos says that he had enough of them, and after tonight, neither of them will be able to walk, let alone joke around. The New Day proclaim that they're about to become 12-time tag team champs. So when we come back from commercial break, we see a rematch. Titles are on the line, AJ Styles and Omos versus the New Day. And this match, in my opinion, was pretty much just like the WrestleMania match, not move for move or anything, but it was like, almost, it was a little different because almost started, he was dominating, tagged AJ. Then the New Day took over for, it was like 10% in the beginning with Omos. Then it was about like 85% of it, the New Day versus AJ just beating him up, isolating. AJ would, hit like an Insiguri, Pele kick, some kind of counter, and almost gonna make it to almost, but nope. They pull him back. So it's the same old shit we've seen. They just job AJ out, which is ridiculous. And then eventually Omos comes in. He gets a tag. So at the end of this thing, he hits a backbreaker to both men and showcases his strength. Omos then splashes them in the corner. Omos hits Kofi with a choke bomb, and Xavier tries to rally, but gets dropped with a big boot. Styles tags in, jumps off Omos' shoulders with a phenomenal forearm to Woods, and their first successful title defense. So we all knew they weren't going to lose here, a rematch, but it was pointless. This was stupid. Nobody wanted to see this. Build up some actual contenders. Don't just keep giving title shots to, the popular team. And I don't even think the New Day are that popular anymore. Let's be honest. So then after the match, we see Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce. They're backstage, and she is like condescends him and just like, they're kind of like going back and forth a little bit. Pearce says that they need to get it straight. He appreciates her input, but she's really overstepping lately. And Deville and him have a tense stare down because they're talking about Charlotte Flair as well. He's like, yo, why were you bullshit with Charlotte and all this stuff? And Charlotte kind of walks by and he looks at her like, what's going on? So And then from a commercial break, Eva Marie, we see a big thing for her. And, she's just like laying there all sexy on a car or whatever it was. As soon as I saw this, I was just like, oh my God. I mean, is she attractive? Yes. Is she an awful wrestler? Also, yes. And if I want to see attractive women, just be attractive, I'll watch something other than wrestling, if you know what I'm saying. If I want to just see, women who are good at wrestling, that's why I watch wrestling. So I'm not excited for her return. I'm sure some people are. The whole thing is just, do I have your attention now? Yeah, you do, but for all the wrong reasons. So then we see Bobby Lashley and MVP, their interview backstage. MVP says Braun's luck ran out tonight. He could eat a bowl of 4-leaf clovers and he still wouldn't have enough luck to beat Bobby Lashley. Braun and Drew are forces of nature that would be far too much for a normal man. And Lashley says that he is no normal man and that they will have to pry his title from his hands. He doesn't fancy anyone's chances doing that. MVP says that Strowman Express gets derailed tonight. So then we see Jackson Riker backstage with a basket of tomatoes. They try to sneak up on Woods and Kingston, but they accidentally pelt Randy Orton instead. Randy's, he's all pissed. Riddle rolls past him on his scooter. So obviously you knew this was going to set up a match later on in the show for the RK Bros, which I was fine with because this tag team, I think if anybody should be the one who you build up and eventually dethrone AJ and Omos, it's these guys. I mean, I wish it was Cedric and Shelton, but we'll see what's going on with them later in the show. So then we see Charlotte Flair versus Dana Brooke with Mandy Rose. And this also, this match wasn't too bad either. It was very quick. Dana Brooke got a little bit of offense in. She looked really good using her. I shouldn't say look really good, but look, good for Dana Brooke. Used her athleticism, all that stuff. And, kind of Charlotte sold a little bit for her. But at the end, of course, how this thing goes. She hits a big chop block on her when Brooke, she was actually going to do the handspring back elbows. Charlotte Flair chop blocks her. She had that scouted figure 4, figure 8, and she taps out. So then after the match, Charlotte doesn't release the hold. So Mandy rushes in, drop kicks her. Rose beats Flair out of the ring and then checks on Dana until Sonya Deville makes her way to the ring. So then Sonya and Charlotte, they're in the ring, and Deville says that she has arranged to allow Flair to make a proposal. Charlotte Flair says that she was taken back when she heard Asuka and Rhea were going to have another match at Backlash for the title, and that she's being left out again. And she have to remind everyone that she beat Asuka at WrestleMania, ending the undefeated streak. She also put Rhea on the map by beating her for her NXT title at last year's WrestleMania. Charlotte says Deville can't tell her if she wasn't added to the match at Backlash. She said that, you can't tell me if I was added that match wouldn't be a bigger deal because of my name. Look at me. I'm the best there is. I'm an influencer, all this stuff. And she makes it that much more important. So Charlotte says that Deville did a good thing in bringing her back, but make no mistake, the WWE needs her. She implores Deville to make another good decision and add her to the match at Backlash. She says, be fair to Flair. So Deville makes, she's like, oh, you know what? You make a compelling argument. The men have a triple threat. Why not the women? So she's going to make this match a triple threat at Backlash. So then the Raw Women's Champion, as soon as this, her music hits, was Rhea sitting there in Gorilla with the sound guy like, hey, get ready to play my music. Charlotte's going to be bullshit. Again, she should have just stormed out to the ring. No music. I hate when they do that. Completely destroys like the natural feel to it. So she comes out and she says she put up with a lot from Charlotte, but this is bullshit. And she says there's a reason why Flair wasn't at WrestleMania, and there's a reason why she won't be in the match to start with. Nobody likes her. Charlotte pretends to cry, and Reyes says that she knows that she can beat Asuka again, but a triple threat is unfair. She should have known that this was all a part of a bigger plan. So then Asuka comes to the ring, and she says that this is all bullcrap, and she says Charlotte whines like a baby, and then Asuka mocks her. Asuka says it doesn't matter because she can beat Flair, she can beat Rhea, and she's ready to become the Raw Women's Champion. And then Charlotte says this is why nobody compares to her. They've got a curveball, and they got thrown a curveball. They both lose their minds. She says that she will be walking out Backlash as a new champion. Rhea gets in Sonya's face and shouts at her. Then Charlotte attacks her. Rhea rolls outside. Asuka knocks down Charlotte from the ring, and she dances and poses and stands tall. So this was actually a pretty good segment. Charlotte's been cutting a lot better heel promos in the past couple of years. I'm fine with this. If Sonya Deville kind of wants to become her manager, because we see, she's kind of getting on the outs with Adam Pearce, I'd be fine with that. This triple threat I'm actually looking forward to because Charlotte has good chemistry with both these women. Now, Rhea and Asuka, I don't think the chemistry is really there, but Charlotte has chemistry with the two of them. So I think they can really mend this into something good. But I just hate triple threats, any type of multi-man, multi-women match or one fall to a finish. I would much rather see them be elimination, but that's just me. So let me see Humberto Carrillo. He's being interviewed backstage, and he says Sheamus is a tough guy, but Sheamus is a bully. He knows what it's like to be bullied, but he won't let Sheamus. Yeah, you're getting bullied in the booking department, but he won't let Sheamus do that to him. He's going to fight him, and Sheamus attacks Carrillo from behind, beats him into the production boxes, and tell him, you're in no condition to accept my open challenge this week, but there's always next week. So, we see this feud, Sheamus versus Humberto. To me, this, how can you get behind Humberto? Because, to get him over, you need to just have him in random matches, beating just random guys. But see, that's the problem. There's no random undercard guys. Everybody on this show has a name and it's supposed to feel special. You don't have job guys anymore that these guys can just beat up and get over because nobody's over. That's the problem because it's 50-50 booking. You win one week, you lose the next week. Nobody's over. Nobody's, a jobber. Nobody's a main event because they're all over the place. So then we see DeVille. She's walking backstage with Adam Pearce, stops her. He yells at her. She tries to say that she texted him. He's like, I think this is when he was really accosting her about Charlotte. He's like, what are you doing, adding her to this triple threat, doing all this stuff? She's like, oh, well, I texted you, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, we work in the same office. You could have just told me, what do you mean you texted me? Don't be bullshit. And they start yelling back and forth. And he says that they're supposed to make decisions together. He's like, do I need to call somebody who's higher up more than us? And, she apologizes and she's like, you know what, you're right. He walks away. She kind of gives him the look, like a stare, not angry or sneaky or anything, but you definitely see the rift going on between them as well. And I don't mind that because we've been saying, put one on Raw, put one on SmackDown, but it looks almost like DeVille's going to be like a manager or something for Charlotte. So then we see the Miz and Morrison there in the ring, and Miz says that they were humiliated when they were pelted with Rotten Tomatoes by the New Day and Damian Priest. Miz lists off all of his accomplishments and says that there was no way to treat an all-time great. He runs through this stuff, and Miz was a great promo here. This was good, saying I won all these belts, all this stuff. There's no difference between me and, Stone Cold, The Rock, Hulk Hogan, John Cena. He's like, when you just look at the list of accomplishments, so why am I treated like shit and they're treated so good? Well, it's because the way you're booked by modern WWE television and writers. That's why. But, John Morrison tries to also get himself over and be like, yeah, what about me? What about Johnny Drip Drip? All this stuff. What about all my accomplishments? Well, they're more outside of WWE, but of course they don't exist here on Raw. And, Miz just ignores them. So you see Morrison, he kind of is just not getting annoyed, but you definitely see maybe there's going to be a split in this group as well. I don't know. But then, Damian Priest he says Damian Priest has to get what he deserves. So we're going to see a match, Damian Priest versus John Morrison with The Miz. And this match was actually really good. These two guys are super athletic, super great. And actually, this match was pretty even, pretty contested. And John Morrison was actually going to win this thing. At the end, Priest clobbers Morrison with a lariat for a 2 count, but Priest goes to the top rope. Miz distracts him, allowing Morrison to hit a Spanish fly for a near fall. Then Morrison goes to the corner and he wants the Starship Pain, but Priest grabs him. And then Morrison actually rolls up Damian Priest, but the Miz gets on the apron again, distracts the ref, and it was actually a 3 count. So he would have won the match if it wasn't for the Miz distracting the ref. And then, pretty much then Priest hits the reckoning after that because then he, it's like, oh, what are you doing, man? Blah, blah, blah. All the distraction, all the people involved. Damian Priest is able to hit the lights or the reckoning, whatever you want to call it, for the 1, 2, 3. So good, pretty quick, good match. Damian Priest wins. No problem with that there. We see Adam Pearce. He's backstage with Mansoor. Mansoor, who, we've seen a little bit on NXT. He was in a lot of the Saudi Arabia shows and stuff. He's very talented. He's a really good wrestler and stuff. So I have nothing bad to say about Mansoor. So I was actually fine to see him here on Monday Night Raw. And he signs his Raw contract. And Sheamus walks in. He's like, oh, the champ is here. Sheamus says that Humberto won't be answering his open challenge tonight. And, because accidents happen. Then he makes fun of Mansoor because he's officially a Raw superstar, just like Sheamus. He's like, oh, yeah, I'm a Raw superstar, just like you. He's like, oh, just like me. Oh, Mr. Big Raw superstar, So he's just making fun of Mansoor. And Pearce says that he has tons of potential, and Sheamus then mocks them, saying that he must be in the presence of greatness. Sheamus says that this is a big night for Mansoor, so why not accept the open challenge? It won't be for the title, but there's no way the WWE Universe will get to know him without seeing him taking a boot to his face. Only Sheamus knows you got to wrestle to get over and get seen. So, at least somebody's on the same page as us. Then MVP, he's interviewed backstage again, and he says that the match tonight shouldn't be happening. He says Braun weaseled his way into the match. MVP says maybe Lashley and Drew should team up to ensure they get a one-on-one match that they deserve. So you see, maybe MVP scared of Lashley. He has to spin that narrative and stuff. But, that is what it is. Then, without any entrances, because they don't care about these guys, we see Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin versus the Lucha House Party. And this match was also, pretty good. I'm a big fan of both these teams. Unfortunately, like I said, no entrances. They're treated like bullshit, treated like jobbers. But, this was pretty good. At the end of the thing, Dorado, he lands a tornado DDT. Then Cedric rushes in, but he gets tossed over and out. Dorado then leaps over onto Alexander as Metalik tags in for a rope walk elbow drop onto Shelton to score the victory. So Lucha House Party wins, good win for them. Then after the match, Cedric grabs a microphone and he berates Shelton. He says that they were champions not long ago, and it's no wonder why MVP and Lashley kicked them out, but they didn't kick him out. They kicked Shelton out. He was the weak link from day one. Cedric asked Shelton how long he's been in WWE and done nothing. He says that he won't waste another minute of his life carrying Shelton. So we see the split there, and we would hear from Shelton later. So maybe we'll see a little singles feud one-on-one. Whoever goes over, I would love to see Shelton win as a babyface and beat Sheamus, be United States champ. To me, that would be badass. That would be really fitting and good for Shelton. Are they going to go through with that? Probably not. So let me see Angel Garza. He's walking backstage with the Rose. Drew Gurulek stops him. Gurulek says that it's funny that he calls himself a ladies' man, but he can't score. Gurulek challenges him to a match, and he says that if he wins, he wants the rose. Garza says that if he beats him, he'll shove this rose up his ass. I don't know why he wants the rose. Is he on the Bachelorette? But hey, whatever. So then we see from commercial break, we come back. Shelton is walking backstage and is stopped for an interview. He says that he survived for so long in this business because he can take a hit. He's seen so many young superstars come and go, guys like Cedric. Nobody knows it, but he was the one who wanted Cedric in the Hurt Business. He let him say his piece tonight, but if he continues down this path, he'll be another young star who fizzles out, but Shelton will survive. So, we see there, maybe, Cedric's going to call him out again. This feud is good because we saw, the little bits and pieces, the seeds were planted when the Hurt Business was 5 guys strong. So, this is our 4 guys strong, excuse me. So this is good. I like this. And, if you weren't going to keep them as the tag team champs and run with that, this is the next best thing is to feud them because they don't care about the tag division anyway. So then we see Drew Gurulek versus Angel Garza. This thing was really quick. Garza just beat the hell out of him. Gurulek is a lot better than he's been portrayed in WWE besides the matches with Daniel Bryan. But, this was, a good showing for Garza. He eventually hits a face wash, then the wing clipper for the win. He pretty much ripped the pants off right away, threw him in his face. There was no games, no nonsense. You saw a really tough attitude. Then after the match, he shoves the rose in, in his trunk, or not trunks because he wears like the long tights, like the pants, shoves them in there, pretty much just did a drop kick on it, or punt kick onto his ass, essentially kicked the rose up his ass. So, if the rose had thorns on it, whatever, that probably hurt. But then we see Riddle. He's rolling backstage on his scooter. He gets stopped by the Viking Raiders, and he asks them if they watch the NFL draft. He asks if they're fans of the Raiders or the Vikings, and they're like, I believe it was Eric who's like, well, I'm a Browns fan. And he's like, I did not see that coming. So that was actually kind of funny. And then he's like, oh, well, you guys, you're Vikings and you raid. So like, you probably something about like singing and, being like women's, ladies' man's. He's like, I know you are Ivor, you sexy stallion, all this stuff. And then he sees Randy. So he rolls up to him and, he's still pissed off about everything, getting pelted with the rotten tomatoes. And Randy says that he's not his bro, but, they are, bros, even though he's not his biological bro. And he's like, but we're also undefeated. So, why don't we have another match tonight? And Riddle can, and they pretty much agree. And then we see Riddle and Randy Orton versus Elias and Jackson Riker. And this match also wasn't too bad either. Jackson Riker's really not that bad. Elias is Elias. He's not awful in the ring, but he's not great. He's just, he is what he is. Randy Orton and Matt Riddle, this team I'm actually liking more and more when we see them. And I just love the finisher. Elias, he gets countered, dumped into the announce desk. Then Orton punches Riker. Back inside, Orton hits Elias with a backbreaker and then a draping DDT. He tags in Orton for the floating bro as Randy hits Riker with an RKO. So, they pretty much, I believe it's like the draping DDT or the RKO into the floating bro, whatever the sequence was. It was great. I love how they do their finish. And, they're the right winners here. So I have no problem with this. Maybe see something in a singles run, but we just saw Randy in a big feud. Where does he go from there? We just saw Matt Riddle lose the United States Championship. So I really don't have a problem with this. And we see Drew McIntyre. He's interviewed backstage, and he says he doesn't care who wins tonight so long as they beat the hell out of each other in regards to T-Bar and Mace. McIntyre says he doesn't know why they keep attacking him. He also doesn't know why they took off their stupid masks, but they kept the stupid names. What's it meant to be, will be. There's a lot more that he's concerned with, and that's winning back the WWE Championship. Strowman walks up and says he and McIntyre better not be thinking about teaming up against him, but it won't matter if they do. McIntyre says maybe they will, maybe they won't, but Braun needs to get the hell away from him. So then we come back from and again, I skip over these segments with this whole Lashley, Strowman, whatever feud, because to me, it's just being booked the most, god-awful way. So, they can keep having promos, try to hype me up, get me excited. It's not going to work. And we see Sheamus versus Mansoor. So this was just, a match that Mansoor was having his first debut match on Raw. Was he going to get the win? Like we said, usually people debut, they should kind of get a win, or they should kind of be protected. And like we talked about NXT UK, with Rohan against Tio Man, this was kind of the same thing a little bit, where the guy didn't lose, by submission or, tap out or anything like that. It was unforeseen, forces or whatever you want to call it that caused the match. But Mansoor looked really good. Just like I said, he's a really good wrestler. We've seen him wrestle before. And, Sheamus, he gets a hold of him, he grabs him by his face. He makes a big smile. He's like, yeah, look at this smile. Yeah, the WWE universe, all this stuff. And, just kind of saying, oh, smile, you're on Raw, all this stuff. So, just kind of getting under Mansoor's skin. And Mansoor then elbows Sheamus over and over. He hits a basement drop kick, a step up enziguri. Then he hits a tornado DDT for a 2 count. Sheamus is bleeding at this point. Then Mansoor goes to the top rope, but Sheamus shoves his feet and he lands hard. Sheamus then lifts him up for an Irish curse backbreaker and then goes to the corner and then readies for the bro kick. But then out of nowhere, Humberto jumps in, attacks. So you see, Sheamus is, the winner by DQ because of Humberto comes in and attacks. So unfortunately, Mansoor lost his, he was probably going to lose it anyway, eat the bro kick and done. You want to go storyline, but this was a good match for him. He looks good. And we see this Humberto feud and stuff isn't over. So who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if they just put Humberto and Mansoor in the tag team because they're like, yeah, we don't know what to do. And Sheamus will move on to something else. But then, after this all going on, Carrillo, he knocks Sheamus out of the ring, then hits a big suicide dive. He beats Sheamus against the announce desk, slides him back in the ring. Sheamus catches him with a bro kick. And then one for Mansoor as well, and Sheamus poses with his title. So you see, did it really even mean anything at the end of the day? No. And that sums up Monday Night Raw. And then we see, from a commercial break, we see Alexa's Playground once again, and she says Lily had a lot of fun tonight, and she's a big fan. Hopefully, no, she wasn't watching Monday Night Raw, because if she's a big fan of that, I'm already not a fan of Lily. And then Lily loves to play hide and seek, but, she gets her little hands dirty all the time. Wherever she goes, trouble follows. A certain someone has caught Lily's eye, but they won't say who. Alexis sings a song about Lily. So maybe this is setting up for the next, maybe this is either for the Raw Women's Championship, or I don't know where this is going. This whole, it should still be the Fiend. We haven't seen him for a couple weeks. Maybe that's good. I know a lot of people have, soured on the Fiend. I'm indifferent. I could care less, because to me, it's like baseball. They had 3 strikes with this character, and, they're on strike number 5. So he's out of here for me. But, if they can fix him, great. If not, hey, this show's awful regardless. So we see the Raw Tag Team Women's Championship match. Again, I don't know why the Raw Women's Tag Team or the Raw or the, I guess, WWE, because it's really not Raw because they're any brand, but the Women's Tag Team Championships are on the line. And this match, Lana Naomi versus the tag champs, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler. This was something where it's like, why is this even happening? This doesn't make any sense. This was just really quick. Lana, Naomi, they looked all right, kind of getting offense on Shayna, being like, oh, this is, they pinned Shayna in a singles match. If they do it here, they'll be champs, blah, blah, blah. No, doesn't matter. Shayna applies the Kira Fuda clutch for the win at the end of this thing. Really quick match. At least the tag champs won here. Like we said, this is setting up for hopefully Natalya and Tamina to win the titles at Backlash. So then we see MVP and Bobby Lashley. They're in gorilla position, And MVP talks about the next match, and he says that this is a battle between two bulls who want to rip each other apart, but there can only be one dominant bull, and it will be Bobby Lashley. They make their way to the ring for the main event. So Bobby Lashley versus Braun Strowman, and of course MVP is out there as well. So these two guys, they start beating each other up, just big man match. You see, I would say actually Braun was kind of dominating early on from this thing. Lashley gets a little bit, but you just saw the power and the strength of Braun Strowman. But eventually, Braun grabs him. He goes to do that big club to the chest, but Drew McIntyre music hits. He comes out. He walks to the ringside. Strowman gets out of the ring to confront him. Lashley then dives off the apron onto Braun. And Lashley stands in front of Drew and looks at him for a fist bump like, hey, thanks for helping me out, man. Again, they're trying to play head games with Drew, play head games with Braun. So I like that, but Drew just stares at him. And when we come back live, McIntyre's on commentary. They're talking about the match, trying to ask McIntyre questions, but you can tell he's getting annoyed. He's like, can we just watch the match? Can we just talk about the match? And as you see at this point, it's more even match, back and forth. But at the end of this thing, Strowman, he hits a running tackle in the corner, then a release suplex, but Braun stomps Lashley and wants to hit a running power slam, but Lashley slides off. Lashley wants the hurt lock, but Strowman is too strong, too big. He can't get his hands locked, and he picks him up for a sidewalk slam. Lashley rolls outside, and Braun goes after him, but, he does like the Strowman Express, that bullshit, runs around the ring. Lashley sends him into Drew, so then they start fighting, start yelling at each other, which just pretty much sets up the end of the match because Braun gets back inside and, Drew jumps on the apron, starts yelling at him. Braun yells at him. And by the time he turns around, Lashley hits a big spear. 1, 2, 3. He pins him. But as soon as the match ends, McIntyre gets in the ring and he hits Lashley with a Claymore. Then he goes to the other corner, sets up. He hits Braun with a Claymore as well. And the announcer revealed that next week, McIntyre will face Lashley in a one-on-one match. So that was Monday Night Raw. And, why do we need to see another one-on-one match between Drew and Lashley? We've seen it how many times? There's no reason that these guys even have to fight or even have to, touch or do anything before the match at Backlash. It doesn't make any sense. But that's Monday Night Raw. It's not SmackDown is the land of opportunities, I guess. And Monday Night Raw is the land where nothing makes any sense. So that was the show. Like I said, a lot of stuff just really isn't that good, that exciting. I mean, yeah, Mansoor it was cool to see him. The RK Bros aren't bad, but that's the thing. It's just some stuff this was pretty cool or this wasn't bad. Nothing on this show anymore is great. Nothing on the show really excites you. And that's a problem when it's a 3-hour show, but that's why Ropebreak's here. You watch this 20, 25 minutes, you pretty much can easily digest it. And that's how we want to do it to your family. So thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, follow us on all the social media, Ropebreak on Facebook, OG Ropebreak on Twitter, Original Ropebreak on Instagram, and of course, right here on YouTube, the Original Ropebreak. And, tune in, like I know you will, tomorrow for NXT review. And we will be doing that right after the show. So we only have one thing left to say.